Perfect. Okay, now let's call this meeting to order, 3:11 PM.
Okay, we're good.
Mel, thank you. Anybody who's listening online, just my monthly reminder, just double check that your mics are muted. I think we try to do it from here, but almost every meeting something happens, right? So just double check that you're muted there. First and foremost, before I get into my housekeeping remarks, I want to apologize to everybody in terms of running late. I try to be tight on these meetings, and usually most months, if not every month, we're pretty on time. We ran into a few, it was a combination of scheduling things as well as IT things, as well as discussions that ran a little bit longer than we thought it would. So my sincere apologies on behalf of myself and the board for keeping you waiting there. So before we actually get into the substantive portions of the agenda, just a few kind of legislative housekeeping things. As everyone is aware, April 1st, the CSPA came into effect. It's really been a transformative overhaul of policing and police governance in the province. One of the things that it actually has had an impact on is our meeting structure. Today, we're doing things a little bit different in the sense of making sure that we're in compliance with the CSPA about going in camera and public meetings and closed meetings. And so I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to that. If anyone's ever interested about that because they're bored and they want to do some reading, it's section. What is it here? Subsection 2. I don't know what the section is right here. Well, go look at the CSPA. It's in there. So. And with that, I will, let's actually go to disclosure of interest, please. So are there any conflicts of interest that members want to disclose, declare, and if so, this is the time to do it now? Being none. I know that there are matters of new business. Does the board, any member of the board want to add any new business to the agenda item? Yeah, I'm gonna cite that there. Okay, so what we have here is we're gonna add two new items. There's the femicide report that Vice Chair Walker will be speaking to later on in the meeting, as well as the London Police Board stipend. It's our annual, I think it's a 2% increase in our stipend, right, which will come for discussion before the board here. So other than the femicide report and the stipend discussion, is there anything else that anyone wants to add to the agenda as new business? Okay, so can I get a motion to add those two new items, the femicide report and the London Police Services Board stipend as new agenda items? Moved by Member Goss, seconded by Member Stevenson. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we will add those, Ms. Foster, to agenda item to go, which is new business then. So. Okay, so we're going to move forward with the agenda item number 4, which is the London Police Service Asset Management Plan. Deputy Chief McSween, I'm looking over to you to introduce the report and walk us through it. Thank you.
Chair, through you, I'd like to welcome to the front Khalid Shahada, Nathan DeWitt, and Jason Senesi. I hope I'm not saying that wrong. The corporate asset management team of London Police Service. So we're going to be He's going to be setting up his PowerPoint presentation there. And they're presenting on the corporate asset management plan for the London Police Service. So the city worked collaboratively with Manager Poole and Manager O'Shaughnessy that's here, and also Director Graham with regards to coming up with a report that the board's about to receive. Yeah.
And as they're getting it up on the screen there, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that this is your first, Deputy Chief McSween, your first ever board meeting with the London Police. I think we started just after our last one, so welcome and congratulations, and welcome to the board here, board meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. So my name is Khalid Shahata. I'm Manager of Corporate Asset Management. I'm going to go over the slides I have. So this is agenda I'm going to cover: overview of the asset management plan structure, detailed overview of the results of the asset management plan. It includes something called state of local infrastructure, which include asset inventory and condition, level of service, life cycle management, and discussion about the infrastructure gap. Then we have a conclusion and recommendation after we go through life cycle management and level of service. So this is the plan has been included. It's around 50 or 60 pages long. It has lots of pictures over there. The idea is to speak about the assets that we currently own within the London Police Services. So right now we have a total replacement value of about 175 million. The majority of this replacement value, which is 74%, is for facilities. So the building that we have right now is the big portion of the asset that we have. We have some IT infrastructure, about 18 million, fleet, 16 million, other police equipment, and facilities connection too. The goal of the asset management plan is to look into those assets and see what's the condition of those assets and what do we need to do to maintain those assets over the next 10 years. So if you look into the condition of the asset portfolio that we have the majority of our assets are in fair condition, which is mainly this building that we have. We have some in good and very good, and very small percentage poor and very poor, 2%, which is very small, but 2% of 175 million could be a lot of money. And the other thing that we want to focus on is how to maintain those assets in the future over the next 10 and 20 years, and what do we need to do for them. This is a detailed breakdown of the asset classes that we have. I just want to highlight that the multimedia devices, the current replacement value of them is 1.1 million. They have around 40% of them are the end of their useful life. So that's not a big chunk of money, but it's important to maintain all our assets in fair or better condition. That's why we highlight some of those assets over here. The majority of our assets are either green or yellow, which is good. The poor and very poor are the one that you want to focus on not have in the future. Then, as part of our asset management plan, we do something called level of service. So the level of service, this is our first asset management plan for the London Police Services. So we started with few number of level of service that are going to meet the regulation requirement, and also at the same time provide us some indication of the asset portfolio that we have. And we divide the level of service into two categories, one called direct level of service, and the other one called related level of service. The direct one are the ones that I can relate to cost. The related, that's something going to help me in my decision making. So I'm going to focus in my next slide on the direct one, and I want to focus on three categories. The first one is cost efficiency, and we look at something called reinvestment rate. And we check the performance on the target. We are below the target for this one. Then we have some environmental stewardship, and the goal is to reduce them in the future, and we are positive downward. And the last one is reliability, is looking at the percent of assets in fair or better condition. Right now, we have 98% of our assets in fair or better condition. That's an amazing result. We want to maintain that. We don't want to reduce those number of assets. Then in the asset management plan speaks about the life cycle management. And we have three scenarios that we present in the asset management plan. The first one is the planned budget, what the budget going to provide us if we maintain those assets. Are we going to deteriorate in condition or not? Then scenario 2 is the cost to maintain current level of service. And scenario 3 is the cost to achieve a proposed level of service. And the outcome of those scenarios are presented in my next slides. So if you look into this chart, the dark blue are the investment required. The red is the budget that we have. And keep in mind, this is before the multi-year budget. So those information, the numbers that you're seeing there, before the requests that you went through, because the timing issue of developing our asset management plan needs a lot of time to do the analysis. So this slide is before the multi-year budget request. And you're going to see we end up with a maintained level of service gap of around 94 million. And we end up with a achieved proposed level of service gap of 186 million over 10 years. I want to pause here. When we did this update, the update for the analysis based on the multi-year budget, those two numbers reduced to zero. So the infrastructure gap for maintained current and achieved proposed, because you got the funding that was requested as part of the multi-year budget. So there is no gap for maintained current and achieved proposed. But this is not in the plan because the plan started in 2022 and didn't take into account the multi-year budget analysis. Okay, to conclude, as part of the plan, we put some recommendations. So the recommendation is structured around the knowledge area of asset management, asset inventory, level of service, risk, and we put some projects that we want to improve, and we group those for improvement as part of the asset management plan. Some are short term, or some are long term. The key thing is we want to improve the accuracy and reliability of our data. We want to improve our understanding of level of service by adding additional level of service metric, and eliminate the infrastructure gap, which some of them has been achieved as part of the multi-year budget, and some we're going to work over the next 4 years to implement as well. And that takes me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalid, for that report there. Members, any questions in relation to the report that you just provided? Yep, Member Stevenson.
Thank you for the report. You just said that based on the multi-year budget, the gap came down to 0
Yes.
for the 10-year.
Yes. So I had a slide, but I wasn't able to show it. So what we have done is the infrastructure gap, we modeled it over the next 10 years. The amount of money that you got for maintain current and achieve proposed mitigated the growth of the gap and take it all the way to 0 in 10 years. Yes, no gap in 10 years after the funding that you got from the multi-year budget.
That's hugely different than what we've been reading for the last week.
In terms, so.
Well, I guess for me, like I said, I've been processing this that we got, and what you're saying is really the issues highlighted in here don't exist actually.
After the multi-year budget money, yes.
Ali, I have a question too.
Is it possible to get a one-page letter or something from the city with an update on that? Because we're being asked to approve something that says it's concerned, like it's very concerned.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me put it like that. We were developing the asset management plan at the same time the multi-budget were being debated. So the amount of work and analysis that we have been doing is impacted by the multi-year budget. So when we were writing the plan, it was concerning and still concerning if we don't get the money required to address the gap. We finished the plan in a draft format while the multi-year budget was being approved. We did a quick analysis based on the approved multi-year budget for this meeting to make sure that we tell you a good picture or bad picture, depending on the result of the multi-year budget. Once we did the analysis, we found that we eliminated both gaps by the money that you got approved through the multi-year budget.
Oh,
So, yes,
Yeah,
thank
go
you,
ahead.
Chair. Well, I guess, like I said, this was shocking, and now what you're saying is shocking in the other direction. So I can only speak for me. I would have appreciated a memo at the front just saying we haven't been able to update this, but this is the status of it, and this is now our findings, because I have all kinds of notes prepared on very concerning. Like I said, and we're being asked to approve this today, I believe. So I'm gonna process this now,
Yep.
and I'll,
take your time. I'm going to go to Member Branscombe. Over to you.
I had the same concerns as Susan, but I also want to know then, because of our multi-year budget and our longer term plan, when we get new assets, how do they jump into this plan? Like we get new vehicles, or if we build a new building or renovate, like how do we factor in all the new assets? It's got to be kind of a rolling asset management plan, and I guess I don't really understand that piece of it. So we don't have a deficit now based on the multi-year budget, but that doesn't include any of the other assets that we're going to be incorporating, I guess, into the force.
I mean, so the way it works is like that. The asset management plan is a living document. So we draw a line in the sand and we say, we're going to look into our assets as of end of 2022 or end of 2023. And that's what we have done in this asset management plan. Then we have an annual update process that we go back to the board and council and say, okay, how many assets, new assets we acquire, and what is the requirement over the next 10 years to maintain those assets and achieve proposed level of service, and give you a snapshot of time a year from now, and so on. We do a full update of the plan every 4 years. We're hoping to do the next one before the multi-year budget. So you can see the needs before you go to the multi-year budget and make the decision that you want in the multi-year budget. That's really our goal. This is our first plan. It takes a lot of effort to collect this information initially. So it took us a long time to achieve it. We weren't able to meet the due dates to publish it before the multi-year budget. That's why the difference. But here's what I'm going to recommend. When we come back to you a year from now to do an update, we're going to take into account the new assets that you have and the new needs. And the next full update of the plan will happen before the multi-year budget. So you see this information before you head into deliberation of the multi-year budget.
Nancy, sorry, Member Grant's gonna follow up.
I guess it's still a bit fuzzy to me, so I'm guess hoping for more clarity too. Obviously, I want to see an asset management plan that's current before the next 4-year multi-year budget or whatever. So it's not current based on the money we just got. So when will we see that plan with the money we have? You've just summarized it, but you haven't really told us how that fits into this. So I'd like to see that as the basis for the next, if it's 3 years from now, then the next approval, then we can see the difference in the differential. Right now, it's just, we've got this old plan that isn't relevant anymore. And before we approve the new budget, we're going to have a new plan, but that's 3.5 years from now. So I guess I'm not computing that. Maybe it's not as urgent, but I think our asset management, considering how many things we want to do and the facilities and the vehicles and all that, is a pretty big piece of the multi-year budget that we got. So I'd like to understand that a bit better. And I don't like the context we have here, just as Susan has said. It just, I know it was a timing issue, but I guess if we knew we were getting a budget, why we didn't wait till after the budget to put this asset management plan together. Maybe it was already started. I don't really know, but it seems to me that that's when you should put it together, after we get the money. And then before the next budget, we have something to work from. So anyway, thank you for this. I think it's really important, but I had the same concerns as Susan. Like, I was a bit shocked at some of these things, and now it's all evaporated in 5 seconds here. So.
Thank you. Okay, so I have Member Morgan, Member Goss, but is your follow-up in relation to your original question, or is it a completely different topic? Not completely, but is it the follow-up to your original points, or is it something?
I guess it is a follow-up.
Okay, so I'm going to go then to Member Stevenson, and then I'll go to Member Morgan and Goss.
So I'm happy to have the good news. But I would give the feedback that it would have been really helpful to just have a covering page on this to let us know to read it with that perspective in mind. You know, even if it didn't have specifics, to just say, you know, that we reassured, because it would have honestly saved a lot of work and thought about reviewing this. And also, what I'm hearing is that the board did a really good thing with their budget request without knowing it, right? Like, because you're saying that with the multi-year budget, we go from very concerning and a huge gap to no gap. So I feel like somehow we must have known, which is great. And there's also that, I imagine this was a tremendous amount of work. The flags were there that it was very concerning. Having had that information to guide us in the multi-year budget process would have been beneficial too, you know? Like, I'm wondering if there's a way for us to get briefing notes of anything. This was very, very concerning, what was presented. So to have had that information, I would hate now to be, as a board, to have done a small multi-year budget and be facing this without having had the information that was available, even if it wasn't specific, to just generally say, you need to make some large investments immediately in order to, we're talking about maintaining level of service, right? And we have a vision that is much greater than that. So we could have been in a really bad place. We're not. I'm very happy to hear that. But I'm also a little shocked that we didn't have the information that we needed at the budget time, and that we were presented this without the update that all is well. So I guess that's my feedback, is way better communication from the city or like from your department, I don't know how to word this, but I guess as a board member, I would say I would really like to have more communication via briefing notes or something to help guide us as we make very important decisions.
Okay, sure. So let's put it this way. We have been working with the London Police to develop this asset management plan since January 2023, just for the plan. We have been working with them to understand the asset management journey since 2019, 2020. So it has been a long journey. The challenges that you see over here, we developed them and we understood them from the data, from the information, from the discussion with police over this. So my expectation is whatever was brought forward to you before the asset management plan was already known by them, and I let them speak about that, to not have this situation where I'm bringing a plan for you that have a problem. The timing is a concern. I'm not going to deny that. Timing is a concern, but we have been struggling to meet 13 agency board convention and the city 20 service area asset management plan all before the multi-year budget. That was another challenge that we had. We're going to try to avoid that in the future. Our approach is as follows. When we finish the plan, we update the information with the new data. So right now, the end date is data inventory as of end of 2022. We're going to look at the data inventory as the end of 2023 and update the condition, update the deterioration, and update the budget that you got and give you a perspective. What we have done quickly to make sure that we portray a good news or a bad news, because I didn't want to say the gap is still there after the multi budget is not before doing my analysis. So we took our time to update the budget projection. We didn't update the inventory yet, so we need to update the inventory. That's why I say it takes 1 year, because we want to collect the inventory. We update a portion of the inventory. Based on the information I have, you don't have a gap, because the amount of money that you requested through the multi-year budget was enough to get rid of the identified, achieve, propose, and maintain level of service issues in our asset management plan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hear you, and I appreciate that. And what I'm saying, there's nothing in this until you shared with us that let us know everything was okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this was a very disturbing thing for me to read. I was very concerned about where we're at. So if there was that budget update, it would have been great to have it. Or have, like I said, even a briefing note saying, don't worry, don't panic as you read this, because it's not as bad as it seems. And you mentioned that we had the numbers previously, but what I read here was based on the last management plan that we saw, the asset management plan, we were considered well managed. So the last report that we saw said that the 5.4 million was a well-managed gap, all was good, which made this extra shocking that we went from well-managed to very concerning, is what it says in here, very concerning. Now, we did have a glimpse of this similarly at the city, like, you know what I mean? We know that the gaps are different now as we work through this process. But like I said, just speaking for myself, this has been like a 180-degree flip in like 5 seconds when you said all was well. So for me, and I'll just leave it there, I feel like I need something else here. I don't want to approve this knowing it's way off track without even just something saying that all is well. We approve it, but I'll leave that to the other members here.
Oh, it's Member Morgan and Member Goss.
Sure, I'll make a few comments. First off, thank you. You're gonna be awkward because you're behind me, but I'm gonna fix this way.
Yeah, feel free to.
Thank you to the council, right? First off, I want to thank you for the work that you've done. I want to make a couple of comments. First, when I read this report, my understanding of the key major driver of the fare condition, which I know fare is not necessarily bad, is actually our facilities, right? When you look at the kind of breakdown of the assets, a lot of them are in good and very good condition. There are obviously a few that you highlighted that were of lower value in the poor and very poor condition, but that big fare piece seems to be driven by the condition of the facilities, given the facilities are 74% of our assets, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So for me, I actually am not, I'm not surprised that the multi-year budget had a big impact. I think as much as we may not have had an asset management plan in front of us, our staff and the and employees that we have at the organization and the preparation of the budget documents that we were presented to this board know the areas of the organization that need investment. You don't need to have an asset management plan finalized before you to know that you've got to invest in different types of facilities and assets as they start to move towards end of life and deteriorate. And that's exactly the plan that was brought before us and considered by this board and ultimately approved. So to me, that this is just an example of a good process seeing itself through to conclusion, to know that the budget that was presented recognized a very knowledgeable, real-time assessment of the assets of the organization that were invested in. And so although the report comes in a bit of a timing issue, I don't think it precludes us not knowing, based on the advice of our staff, where to invest in the multi-year budget, which I think we did. So I think both administration of this organization and the board made good decisions based on having a good knowledge of our assets without actually having to have this formal asset management plan document finalized before us in this current form. So to my colleagues on the board, I don't want you to feel like, I don't want anybody to feel like we didn't know what we're doing. We knew exactly what we were doing when the multi-year budget was presented to the board, passed. And of course, it's really great to hear that in your initial assessment of the work, the investments that we asked for and were made, your initial assessment is that actually brings our gap to zero, which means in spite of not having the formal asset management document, we made investments in the right places in the right way. I'll say also to colleagues on the board, one of the things that we've started doing at the city as we implement and build new assets is to ensure that we're setting aside kind of the life cycle maintenance dollars necessary to maintain those assets, particularly assessment growth assets, where we're actually putting money into the assessment growth envelope to cover the maintenance costs of the assets for lifetime. So not creating new, because remember, levels of service actually impacts the asset management plan. So as you change and invest in levels of service, as long as you're investing the requisite amount of money for the maintenance of those services over time, which I think even in our budget proposals, we were responsible and thought about and we're forward thinking about, then you don't let that grow over time. And so it's a lot easier to close it, right? It's because there's two pieces. There's the catch up, but then there's also the not creating a new problem in the future. And so I think, as long as we stay on track on once you get it to zero, that we continue as we have to build new assets, that we are conscious of what we need to do to invest and maintain those over time, that we don't allow an infrastructure gap to grow. And I think the city isn't quite where this organization will be, but they are making progress in stabilizing the infrastructure gap and strengthening it over time by doing things like not allowing new assets to be a lag on that gap. And of course, we can change levels of service to dramatically impact our infrastructure gap. I'll give you colleagues one example. If you decide that you're going to have sidewalks on both sides of the road in every neighborhood, all of a sudden you increase the level of service dramatically, but you don't have all the infrastructure in there and you create a big gap, right? So policy decisions can actually have a major impact on shifting these numbers. And so having an asset management plan now and with the updated version a year from now allows us to make good policy decisions to ensure that as we change levels of service, we're conscious of possible impacts on the infrastructure gap that it could create. So again, I want to commend and thank you for the presentation and this. I don't disagree with my colleagues. It would be nice to have a note attached to this for anybody who goes back and reads the documents that we've received to show that this is at this point of time, and given investments in the multi-year budget, this is the early assessment that we will see a more robust assessment a year from now when the update is done. A reflection of that, I think, is appropriate for anybody who might go back and read these documents. And so I would support, any direction we need to make that happen, whether it's at this meeting or we attach it, at a subsequent meeting that is properly drafted and articulated like that. Those are my comments on this particular report. I appreciate the time of my colleagues to hear them.
Thank you, Morgan, to the cost. Thank you. Member Stevenson, yeah, go back.
I'm kind of sticking on this, but the comments that were made in here, like the two that really stuck out to me, were saying that the cumulative 10-year maintain current level of service and achieve proposed level of service gaps of 94.5 million and 186.2 million respectively are concerning. This growth in the infrastructure gaps has the potential to escalate beyond LPS's ability to manage services effectively, as there is no intent to allow this to occur. Further action is needed. And then on another page, it says these non-financial measures have reached the point that they are no longer sustainable for both legislated and non-legislated reasons. Thus, long-term financing strategies are needed to ensure the ongoing safety and well-being of the public and LPS staff. Like, I don't know. For me, I'm honestly, like, I understand there's pressure for us to endorse this because of the deadlines, but I'm really reluctant, honestly, to vote to approve a report that is so not truly representative of where we are and the good stewardship that this board has actually done with the assets. So I don't know how much work it is to revamp this or to update it or give us something else that we can approve that isn't going into the public record saying dire warnings when we as a board approved and got passed a multi-year budget that saved us from this reality, right?
Yeah, so let me caution you on things and provide feedback. So we can provide a briefing note to explain the impact of the multi-year budget on this. Asset management plan by itself is a tool that helps us improve and make decisions. So I don't want you to look at this and say, this is the reality today. This was the reality a year from now when we were doing the analysis as part of the asset management plan before the multi-year budget. This information was correct. We can't deny that. When we did the analysis after the multi-year budget, you solved the problem that we are putting over here by putting the additional funding over there. So what I can do is I can provide a briefing note of the impact of the multi-year budget that can be attached to this, and that's not a problem for me. The concern I would say, if it's up to you, if you don't want to approve it, it's up to you. The concern is we have a regulation due date of July 1st, 2024, that we're going to have this approval and endorsed by council. If we don't meet it for police, it may mean that we may not get transfer funding or something like that. That's a risk you are willing to take. I have no problem also. Update the plan to completely show the impact of the 2024 multi-year budget, it would take at least 6 months to give you 2024 numbers with 2024 inventory and detailed analysis. If this is a decision you want to do, I'd be more than happy also to accommodate that as well.
So,
Yes.
so obviously it's not my decision, it's the board's decision, but I just feel like from a planning perspective, and I don't know what the conversations were at the city to say, hey, we have a multi-year budget process coming up. We also have this deadline with the province around the asset management, and how can we align it? Like one of the things it says in here is that one of the guiding principles of this plan is to help provide, I can't just put my hands on it right now, the principle of continuous improvement with the object of increasing line of sight quality of data information and the tools and techniques that are used to inform services and asset management decision-making. Like, I don't know how much work with all of the different boards, but to have had this information to help inform boards as we developed multi-year budgets, it just feels like it's all backwards, that you had the information that maybe could have helped us have council endorse our budget with an easier understanding that this valuable information at hand might have helped support our ask that we knew was needed, but we maybe didn't have the tool that this could have been to help us support that large ask that we had. And then to now be at a point where we don't even have time as a board to really dig into something that's critically important. We're endorsing levels of service, proposed levels of service, financial investments. Like, this is a large thing that this board is being asked to endorse now, because it has to be endorsed by council in June to meet the deadline. So it hasn't set this board up to do their due diligence in terms of really taking ownership of this and approve it, right? Like, so I'm struggling with all of this awareness that the information that we needed wasn't available when it was, and now there's a deadline that isn't, we had no say in this. And to bring it to us, and I'm not picking on you, but I'm frustrated as a board member that I'm being asked to approve a very large document of which you're saying most of it is inaccurate because of great decisions that were made in terms of multi-year budget. But we're being asked to approve it. You know what I mean? It just feels as is because there's a deadline that we weren't responsible for. So even to have brought it with enough time for us to process it, get the briefing note, get ourselves happy with something, because this is going into the public record. People will look back on this for years to come. And personally, this is not something that I want to be associated with without the context. So I'll be quiet now, but I have lots to say about this, but I'm done.
You don't need to be quiet. It's just, like, this is important discussion, so please.
Important to understand, I don't understand all of the constraints that you guys were under. But I do really want more communication, even if it's a, look, this is coming and we don't have time to give you all the details because it does take time. I mean, I have an accounting background. You got to make sure everything is right. But here's what you need to know, right? You've got the wealth of knowledge and information that would have helped us with the budget process. And that would have helped us now, as I don't know if my colleagues were the same. I really stewed over this and it was quite, disturbing. So then to get the great news is great, but now what do we do as a board with a document that might meet the statutory requirements, which is important. I don't want to put us at risk of any transfer agreements. And yet I don't want to put my name to this without it being very, very clear that this was a document from a year ago and that we addressed it proactively with our multi-year budget and all is good.
Yep.
And I'm so grateful that that's the news you brought us today.
Thank you, Member Goss.
I think it's notes here, my apologies. Thank you. It looks like were about to say something though before you came back to me. So if you'll indulge me, Chair, I want to let our presenter respond.
Okay, so I wanted to provide context about the history of developing the plan and how we came here. So we started when the province said we want you to do an asset management plan in 2018. We started working with all the ABCs. We did something called asset management maturity assessment. Pandemic hit, so it delayed many things. The due date for this was originally July 1st, 2023, not 2024. The province pushed it a year. It takes a lot of time to do all of that. We didn't have enough resources. We went to council provided the resources. We did sign a service level agreement with police. We started doing the work of this asset management plan in 2023, but we started planning for this from 2019. So we did take our time to do that. The challenge we face is with the pandemic, with many changes of the province didn't push it another 6 months or something. They promised they may push it, they didn't. So that's one of the issues that we have. We tried our best to deliver something that is accurate as possible and meets the regulation requirement. We didn't want to rush it and send it to you before the multi-year budget with something I cannot put my name on it. But this one, based on the analysis that I have, I can say, yes, this was the accurate information at year end of 2022. We are 2024, things have changed. That's really the context I wanted to provide.
So if I may, Chair.
Yep.
So just to confirm then, you had said the cutoff was December 31st, 2022, is that
Yes.
correct? Perfect, okay. So that's very helpful. I think I may have a compromise here, but before I get to that compromise, can you mentioned, sir, in your presentation that you said, if we don't approve it, that there could be an issue regarding transfer of infrastructure funding. Can you unpack that a bit more for me?
Okay.
Funding from who to whom?
Okay, so the province, when they put the regulation requirement or Reg 5817, they said you need to have an asset management plan by those due dates. Then every time the city goes to get a transfer funding or applying for a grant from the province, they send us an application or a questionnaire saying, did you meet those components of the asset management plan? One of them is the due date, July 1st, 2024. If we say no, we may not get this transfer funding application request. or the province would say, no, I'll give it to you. So it's a risk that we may or may not get.
Thank you for that clarification. So with that in mind, because I don't want to lose out on a cent from anyone, but I'm going to take every dollar that I can possibly get. I think, but to that as well, to my colleague, to member Stevenson's point, I too, like that context was missing, right? So your concerns are very valid, and I think that we can parse that out in a motion, Chair, if you'll indulge me, that I'd like to put on the floor. I'm going to move that the London Police Service Board approve the 2024 London Police Service Asset Management Plan with an effective date of December 31st, 2022. And that be it further resolved that the London Police Services Board note that based on the presentation received from the City of London Assets Management Team on May 16th, that our infrastructure gap is down to zero due to the funding for the multi-year budget, and be it further resolved that this motion be attached attached to the plan and referred to council.
Okay, that was a lot.
Yeah, do you have that right?
I did. Yes, I can get you. Yeah.
Okay, so if you could
I'll read it again.
say that again for
Sure.
Ms. Foster, and then it'll be on the floor. I'll look for a seconder, see if there's a seconder for that. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
So that the London Police Service Board approve the 2024 London Police Service Asset Management Plan with an effective date of December 31st, 2022. Tell me when. Perfect, awesome.
I got that already.
Oh, perfect, okay. That the London Police Service Board further note that based on a May 16th, 2024 presentation by the City of London Asset Management Team that our
Okay, is the guy sitting? Okay, all right, all right.
Yeah. asset
Based
management
on the May 16, 2024 presentation.
by the City of London Asset Management Team that the organization's current infrastructure gap is now projected to be zero due to funding from the City of London's multi-year budget.
Okay.
And that,
Oh,
sorry, and that this motion be referred to the City of London. So it's on the record per member Stevens.
okay, so that's moved by member Goss, looking for a seconder. Member Morgan seconds that. That's on the floor. Questions, comments? Yep, member Stevenson.
Is that information accurate as far as you're concerned, the December 31st, 2022?
Based on my understanding, I think it's correct. Nathan can go
Just
first.
want to make sure we're correct.
December 31st, 2022. Yep.
Okay. And that we have a projected zero infrastructure gap as of 4 years from now?
We said 10-year.
10 years.
The projections are all the 10-year infrastructure gap.
Yes.
So we're
That's
talking
correct.
about
That's correct.
0.1 now for 10 years.
Yes, projected to 10.
Projected.
Actually, it's zero.
It's actually zero for the 10 years. Yes, that's correct.
If I can, I just had one comment to make around what you were saying about the accuracy and getting the reports. You know, in my experience in the accounting field, there's always that balance between accuracy and timeliness, right? If we get it super, super accurate, but it comes so late that it's not useful anymore, it's something that maybe I think we need to talk about because it's so valuable. And to have it after the fact made it useless. You know what I mean? So maybe something less accurate at a time where it was relevant to the decision making might be something we could work with the city on going forward.
Thank you. Okay, any other members want to weigh in on the motion that is on the floor? Seeing none, I will then call the question. Is anyone opposed to member Goss's motion? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Mr. Shahada, thank you for joining us today for that report and for being on the hot seat. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
What I hope to be a less involved matter, agenda item number 5 is the minutes of the April 18 meeting. Are there any deletions, substitution provisions? the minutes from the April 18, 2024 public meeting. Being none, motion to, I need to know the motion to accept, Member Voss, seconded by Member Stevenson. Anyone opposed? Being none, that is carried. Okay. Deputy Chief Bastide, we have hate bias motivated crime adequacy standards report, agenda item number 6 of the agenda. Looking over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, as you mentioned, this is the hate bias motivated crime report as required by level services policy and LPSB policy, as well as adequacy standards. I'll highlight the report, of course, is before you. I'll highlight a few things in the report for everyone's attention, consideration. Our hate crime investigator is situated in the organization with the diversity and outreach unit. So, in addition to the investigative capacity, there's the response aspect, there's the post-investigative aspect, there's also the victim support aspect, which that unit provides to the community. Just draw the distinction between what a hate crime is and what a hate incident is. A hate crime, I think people may be aware, is a little bit of a misnomer because there is no technically, there's no criminal offense of hate crime generally. It's a sentencing principle which aggregates the matters when any offense is committed from a position of bias or hate towards an identified group. So we track hate crimes, of course, which are criminal offenses. We also track hate incidents, which are behaviors which may be it's disorderly behavior in the community, but which fall short of being a criminal offense. This for 2023, you'll see the in table sort of figure 1, you see that there is an increase in hate crimes from 2022 of roughly 40% on that. So from 80 in 2022 to 111 in 2023. Likewise, incidents stay roughly the same during that period. So overall, we have 192 occurrences of hate crime or incidents. With respect to targeted groups, figure 2 highlights the fact that 5 groups, individuals who are Black, South Asian, Jewish, Muslim, or members of the LGBTQ2+ communities, made up the vast majority of victims or targeted groups with respect to hate occurrences. Roughly sort of 8%. Single among those were the LGBTQ2+ community. It was targeted the most in terms of absolute numbers. All of them except either stayed roughly the same or increased slightly. These are trends that I'll point out here that are not unlike other communities in Canada. We have seen locally, but also across Canada and elsewhere throughout Ontario, similar increases, similar trends with respect to this. Something that might be of interest, I think, it will be of interest to anybody reading this report, is the disproportionate number of hate occurrences reported post October 7. So as events occur in the world, whether anywhere in the world or locally, we sometimes see an impact. And we do see here, for example, that with respect to the Muslim community and the Jewish community, there were increases, a disproportionate number of incidents and crimes reported in the 3 months at the end of 2023 versus the first 9 months. As the table illustrates, roughly 1.5 incidents on average reported per month prior to that date, and between 4 and 6 incidents reported after that date. So just to give the reader some insight to what might be going on. addition to that, if you look on figure 3 on page 6, you see that the majority of hate crimes are property related. So it could be mischief, could be graffiti, could be damage to property of any kind. A large number, a fairly large number as well, 35 in absolute terms, were violent offenses. So, and the vast majority of those, over 95%, roughly 95% were assaults. And with respect finally to the laying of charges, in 2023, the absolute number of charges laid increased doubled essentially from 2022 in 2023 to a total of 74 of those 111 crimes, which is roughly 60%. And in the past several years, there's been charges laid in an incident involving a hate crime in roughly 60% of the cases, with some minor deviation. Things that impact that rate and whether or not charges laid typically involve the presence of evidence, the ability to identify a suspect, and willingness of victims to participate. Subject to any questions, this is the report for the board's information.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Sneed. I already have 2 speakers on my list here, so Member Goff, followed by Vice Chair Walker.
So thank you through you, Chair. So the numbers are alarming to say the least, and extremely concerning, especially when we think about where they could be trending and continue to in 2024. So I really want to take a shift and through you, Chair, to either Deputy Chief Bastine or directly to the Chief, whomever would be appropriate to answer. I want to talk about what is being done proactively right now by our service to try to really reach out and engage and try to see what we can do to curb the number of crimes and complaints that we see coming in. I specifically note on page 8 of the report, a major hurdle in the reporting of these type of crimes is historical relationships that newly landed immigrants have had with the police service in their countries of origin. Many were not trusting or supportive of the police agencies and never would report a crime. The trust established by the diversity team with the community groups is growing steadily and has a direct impact on the confidence of the community members to report crimes and hate incidents in London. As the team continues to develop these relationships, an increase in the reporting of incidents and crimes may increase, and thus so should the LPS's response and support. So what are we doing now to accelerate that improvement and to improve those relationships? I'd like to hear more about the proactive measures that we're looking at now and into the future, and maybe through you, Chair, to the Chief. How confident are we that we're going to be able to get this under control and get it to a place where everyone in London feels safe?
Deputy Chief Bastine or Chief Trump? Or both?
Deputy will go, Chair,
Thank you.
review, and then I'll follow up.
Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair, with respect to that, the impact of things that we can do on those numbers. A couple of things there. If the absolute number of actual victimization remains constant, however, our relationship with the community improves, or trust in the police improves among vulnerable communities, newcomers in particular, then we would see an increase. Because simply people are more willing to come forward and more trusting the police to do that. The way we are doing that is to we have targets for our strategies to increase engagement in the community, to build and strengthen levels of trust among all aspects of the community, in particular vulnerable members of the community and newcomers. We currently have one, as I mentioned, one investigator assigned to primarily investigate all hate crimes, with the exception of, for example, something would have resulted in a crime that requires investigation by a specialized unit. That could be different. The vast majority are investigated by that officer. As we expand, as planned with the new service delivery model around 24/7 investigative capacity, with individual specialized training to investigate things such as intimate partner violence and hate crime. We will have, that's the ability to deal with the reports. In addition to the ability to trust, we have the diversity unit, which reaches out to, has a good relationship with the Cross-Cultural Awareness Center, other agencies, similar agencies who do work in that sphere. We have worked closely with them to develop those relationships at the earliest opportunity. Not sure I answered I know I didn't answer the entire question. The chief is going to speak a couple of things. I'm not sure I captured, but
You got a lot of it. I just would like to hear a little bit more about like what new proactive measures are be coming into place, because, you know, we're doing a lot of good work, but we could be doing better. And I just provide, if you'll indulge me, Chair, just a point of context. I think you made a good point, Deputy Chief Bastine. Numbers with context is important, because with more trust, with more education, with more resources, numbers are going to go higher. I'm okay with that if people are being held accountable, right? And if people are being prosecuted for committing hate crimes, like, so not a rise in numbers is one thing, but the context there is important, because when people feel trust and when these are getting reported, slowly but surely we're gonna be able to weed out the Scrooge that is hate in this community. So I take your point on it as well.
So thank you, and Chair, through you, just to add, as we see the increase in hate crimes, and to your point, Member Goss, I see this as a positive. I see this as it is a very underreported crime, and we're seeing marginalized groups report more and more. So one of our priorities is community trust. As you're fully aware, one of the ways to get community trust, not the only way, but one of the important ways, is that we engage with the community. Community engagement is one of the actions that we take from the executive level, from the senior leadership level, and to the great work that our frontline officers do each and every day with every traffic stop, every interaction, every call that they're on, and including the members from the diversity unit. So from a proactive approach, the priorities of the organization are very focused on building these relationships within the community, and more importantly, with marginalized communities and communities that typically haven't been heard or have not felt heard. That's a process. That's not going to happen overnight. That's a process that has been continuing for the last several, for sure, last year and even before that. And we can say today there's a number of groups and organizations that we're engaging with that we haven't engaged with before. So that's some of the proactive steps that we're taking. Investing in our officers with training, specialized training. Right now we have really one individual dedicated to hate crimes. That's not enough. As the deputy alluded to, the new service delivery model. The new service delivery model will allow us to cross-train a number of officers and not just specialize in one particular offense. And hate crimes is something that we want to make sure our officers and build that capacity so that we can provide better service to the community. I would also say, from a proactive approach, efforts for to educate the community, to bring awareness to this issue, and to the public, so public campaigns as we proceed forward. There's lots of things that we're doing from as an organization perspective. I would say everything that we're doing impacts hate crime and the success of what we want to accomplish, which is making sure that we support the victims, making sure that they feel that they can come to us, and making sure that when we have hate crimes or hate motivated incidents, that our officers are fully trained and aware that they investigated properly.
Supplemental to the chief. Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned that one is not enough, and that's an understatement. There's no question that one, especially with the report that we just saw. So I think the cross training is essential. So a two-part question for you: when do you foresee a timeline in terms of the cross trainings beginning? I understand it'll be a longer term process and it's not going to be fixed tomorrow, but when do we see that happening? And then you talked about community trust, and maybe if you could just talk a little bit about what your measure of success is when it comes to community trust and when it comes to reaching out to communities, as you had mentioned, that have been reached out to before.
Yeah, so, thank you, and Chair, through you, I would say our plan is, by the end of 2025, we'll have the new service delivery model in place. And, that will really support our frontline officers, and it will have the capacity to, investigate hate crimes at a greater level. I would also say that one of the measures for us is simply the new relationships that we build with the community, with the marginalized communities, is a measure of success. The more engagement that we have with those communities. And in terms of measuring that trust is built over time, and you build trust through consistency. So I don't think right now we'll be able to measure that. That would involve, consultations, public consultations and surveys, but I can tell you that our officers and the community that we've been engaging with, the feedback we've been getting from our officers and the community have been nothing but positive as we strive to really connect with the community.
Sure. Thank you. I lost my list. I think it was Vice Chair Walker.
Can I just mention that?
Yes.
So I just want to let colleagues know, I've had a chance to ask my questions to the chief, deputy chief on this. I have documents I have to execute by 4:30 for the city, so I've got to go do that.
Sounds like a valid reason. Yeah.
I think we don't get money if I don't do it, so.
Steve's even more. Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate it. So, okay, with that, Vice Chair Walker.
So I really appreciate the changes you've made to the report that are more reflective of inclusivity. So thank you so much. I did have a couple of questions. I heard you say that there is, and chief as well, one officer. So, but how many officers are doing the investigating stuff? Like, I understand one officer is a primary officer that's in a sort of coordination role. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so, oh, sorry,
Sorry. That officer also does investigations.
but how many, not solely?
Not necessarily solely. no.
Yeah, because this is an awful lot of, I wanted to ask you then, is the increase partially or wholly related to increased resources? So they have the opportunity to go and investigate additional crimes.
I think, sorry, to Chair, through you, I think in this case, that variance, knowing that the rate of cases, the rate at which a charge is laid in all hate crimes, I think may be attributable to more things. As if we have, the more individual officers we have with the PSAs and the training to do those specialized investigations, may be able to more quickly identify sources of evidence, things that are required to secure conviction and therefore lead to grounds to lay charge, may increase. I don't know I can't say with certainty that that's what you see in this case, but I do believe that typically as you add more resources to investigating it and providing with more specialized training, they become that could affect the numbers.
Right, so because that is what I think. So I don't think we've seen an increase of this level, 215% increase over 2019. Is because we are seeing, I think maybe we are seeing probably more hate crimes, but I think we're also seeing an increased number of investigations, which is important and which we need to see. But I would not think that with the new funding available, that number is going to go down. I think it's going to continue to rise. And it might be an area where we need to look at in the future about whether it is appropriately staffed. But that's not my job, but I'm just saying, I do think this is an indication of a very serious issue in London.
Thank you. And Chair, if I could just add, I think this is a good time to maybe comment on the fact that further to what I was saying a few minutes ago with respect to how trust in the police can increase the number of reports we receive because people do feel comfortable, feel able to be to approach the police with these issues. Another part of that, as the chief mentioned, in terms of our involvement and engagement, and this is bigger than just the police, but what we would hope to see and what we hope to influence to some degree, to the degree that we can, is through that engagement, through messaging, through awareness, that number we'd have an impact on the actual number versus what's actually just being reported.
I also think it's really important that you name this, which you have. You know, there was a time when we didn't call this hate crimes, but when you name it, you know, it actually is a real benefit to those who are all not only investigating, those who are the recipients of hate, because they feel, yes, I know this is illegal and I can report it. But I think that's important. So thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Walker. Any other questions? Comments with regards to the report here?
I'll just move.
I Chair doesn't typically weigh in or ask questions, but I do want to ask one, maybe two on this one, but I don't want to superimpose. No, okay. So we can call these indulgence a rare exception here. So Deputy Chief Bastine, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. One about resource allocation, right? So sometimes it's referenced in the report, there's geopolitical events that take place in the world that have, in some sense, it feels like it's far away, right? Some other part of the world, but it has a real life impact in terms of what happens here in our city and specifically in this context with the service. So my question to you is, sometimes there's, and I hate to even refer to it this way, but like baseline level hate crimes, right? That are just going to happen regardless of geopolitical events, right? And we've heard pretty detailed explanation, which we appreciate about that. But when there's and it's referenced in the actual report. So let's say there's October 7 and what's happening between Israel and Palestine and Gaza, right? What does the service do in terms of resource allocation or is there a change in resource allocation in light of these types of geopolitical events? And how do we, kind of in a macro sense, don't need to get into operation or specifics, but how do we adjust accordingly for that, whether it's resource allocation, whether it's contingency planning, whether it's just a concern that, oh, okay, here we go, we're gonna see an uptick in hate crimes towards identifying new groups, right? Do we do anything differently in terms of planning for these things?
Thank you. And for you, I don't suppose all of the above is an appropriate answer, but it's a good starting point. So in terms of baseline, that's correct. We do as we monitor, as we pay attention to things that are going on in the world and in the community, we need to be mindful, and we are mindful through senior command all the way down to the officers on the front line with respect to what is going on and how that might impact folks in our community here, be it in Europe or in the Middle East. To use a couple of very current examples. So we connect with people. We connect with leaders in various communities to try to have dialogue, to hear the concerns, to hear their fears, and to learn how we can help them manage those and feel safer. Case in point, we hold regular meetings with groups of people. And hold one-off meetings with groups to connect and hear. We've discussed the fact that the time, I go back to community trust because the time when you need to have trust, when you need people's trust to trust you that you're going to deliver on what they want to see, the time is too late after a crisis hits. So that's why I make the efforts to engage on a ongoing basis ahead of these things. important. But when we do see events, we're connected, so it's not just locally either. We have units who are connected with, through, joint force operations, intelligence, circles to kind of monitor what's going on and to take our cues or to provide information in some cases to the pool. So that we can be well informed and in a good place to respond.
Thank you. My second question / comment, and I can't remember who said it, maybe Member Goss was talking about kind of historical legacies with some new Canadian communities where they come from parts of the world where they don't have trust and confidence in the police service because, you know, whether it's corruption or whether it's just, you know, whatever it's rooted in. I just want to build on that point. That's not just it, but there's also, if you're a new immigrant or a refugee or a newcomer to Canada, it may be a byproduct of language barriers, maybe a byproduct of cultural considerations, and maybe access, lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of rights. So even if you are the victim of a hate crime or a potential hate crime, it's not only that you may not trust the police because of your past experience, but it's also you may not know how to access what are the resources available to you, what are the so is there, as part of those community meetings that you're having that you just referenced, is there ever a discussion about those facets of the conversation? Hey, so you're meeting with the leadership of a X community or a Y community. Here's how you can get in touch with the police. Here's resources, here's contact points so that that can be proliferated out into these communities to at least increase awareness and education of what resources are available to them.
Chair, through you, I don't have at my fingertips sort of some concrete examples of some of those things that might be happening at that unit level.
Yeah.
But big picture, all of that is something that those are very practical or very sort of just the logistics of reporting crime and how do you overcome some of those barriers. So we do it through, I would say, even in our hiring practices, what we try to encourage, we try to attract people who are reflective of the community in all aspects, and so that people can see themselves, whether that's something that they might aspire to, or whether it's something that they in a case where they have to report something they feel otherwise inhibited from doing. That's one of those things. We have access to interpreter services,
right,
as needed. You know, as I'm providing with this information, I'm thinking there's probably some things where we could do better in terms of making those things known to folks. But I trust that we have, especially within the diversity outreach unit and that command structure.
Right. My question is rooted in this is just probably last comment, right? So we look at the empirical evidence. We have it here in the report. We see that there's 5 predominant communities that account for 81% of hate crime in London, right? So LGBTQ, Black, Muslim, Jewish, South Asian. So we have the data that says, oh, you are the most impacted communities. It just I'll leave it at this, which is, so when we LPS or you LPS are having these communications and these conversations, you know, there could be, and it sounds like it's part of your answer. It struck me as kind of proactive policing that we use a model in other areas, right? So that could be kind of just food for thought in terms of proactive policing on that front, in terms of we know who the communities are, and if there are language barriers or cultural barriers or education awareness access issues, that there could be kind of a proactive approach to trying to raise that level of awareness and access to what the resources are. Not a question, just a comment there. So I think that was it on that. So thank you very much to you, Deputy Chief Bastine, for that, and to you, Chief Chung, for that, and some of the comments there as well. So with that, I'd like to motion to accept receipt of the report there. Moved by Member Goss, seconded by Member Stevenson. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Did I see something?
Do you record the rest of the meetings I leave?
The
meeting to go to, but I don't want to go short. No. Well, maybe that makes sense. Wait, that's right.
Yes,
You can go, but nobody else can go.
I just wanted to make sure.
So,
Everybody else can stay for the
We're
full
gonna
meeting.
give the folks the money's worth here. We made them wait for an hour, right? So, okay. When are you leaving? Right now?
It's supposed to be somewhere at 4:30, but I.
No, you gotta go. That's fine. Absolutely.
More important.
No, it's appreciate, we saw porn, so, please, yeah, leave it as long as you, but I'm not even, I know it sounds like I'm speaking facetiously, but no, we can't lose another member, otherwise we don't have.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
This
So,
isn't mandatory, so if somebody else needs to leave, I can stay.
are there any other members of the board that anticipate that they, have to leave? I've already texted my wife during this meeting to say you're on soccer duty tonight, so, good, everybody good? Okay, all right, no, we're good then. Thanks, member Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a child cleaning up by 6. If I want to do that, okay.
We're still here at 6, somebody's going to.
Yeah.
So thank you, member Steve. All right, thank you. All right, staying with you, Deputy Chief Bastine, Criminal Investigation Services Adequacy Standard Report.
Here, for you, this report is submitted likewise through as recommended by LPSB policy and adequacy standards. This provides you with a snapshot on a number of primary investigation type indicators. As recorded by the London Police Service and also as reported by Statistics Canada in the case of comparatives. So Appendix A or Part 1 shows these primary investigation type indicators, which gives you an oversight or an overview of statistics with respect to a number of offenses and occurrences. And the remainder of the report deals with clearance rates with comparative over 5 years with, 4 years with the LPS and across the province as well as across the country. A number of notes for the attention of the board. I think are fairly self-explanatory, but certainly subject to any questions the board has. That's the report for its receipt.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bastine. Any questions for Deputy Chief Bastine with regards to his report? Okay, let's pause for 1 second. Thank you. We got Warren back. We momentarily lost it due to connection issues. All right. Nancy, you good? Thumbs up? Good, thank you. All right. No questions? All right, so motion to accept Deputy Chief's report with regards to criminal investigation services adequacy standards report for information.
Number one.
I'll move it.
Moved by member Branscombe, second by Mr. Walker. Thank you. Anyone opposed? I'd like someone to look to that side of the room. Seeing none, that is carried. Okay. If we go to public correspondence in the plan, is that Father Jim here? Father Jim is here. Father Jim? Yeah. We met somebody earlier today whose name is Jim, and he's a father, and we refer to him as Father Jim. And I didn't think he realized the size of the shoes that he had to fill with the name of Jim. So Father Jim, there's a letter here, handwritten, beautiful letter that you sent on April 10th. That's in the public correspondence. I wanted to take this opportunity to say 2 things. Number one, I rarely see a handwritten letter anymore, right? And it was nice to see that kind of old school there. But and more importantly, Father, just to reiterate to you on behalf of the board, on behalf of the service, on behalf of the community, how truly valued your contributions are to not just the city, sorry, not just the service, but the city. And it's actually, I love the fact that you're here because I was going to say this regardless, but on behalf of the board, on behalf of the chiefs and the deputy chiefs, on behalf of everybody, just thank you, sir, for your continued and ongoing efforts. We're all in your debt, so thank you for that. And so if anybody wants to take a look at Father Jim's letter, it's in the public correspondence package, but thank you, sir.
It's an article about the search.
By Dale Craig.
Yeah, Dale Brothers. I'm not gonna say nice things like that about you, though. All right, so, I can't. Yes, that was on the record. There's an article, in here by Dale, referencing. Yes, I saw it. I don't have it here, but I remember it was a question and answer with, Inspector General Teschner. So this was 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, Inspector General Teschner came, met with the board. And we had a great opportunity to meet him, but at least for me, it was the first time having a chance to meet with them. With the changes to the CSPA as of April 1st, what an incredible opportunity to meet with Inspector General Teschner. He was informative and knowledgeable and walked the board through certain aspects in terms of the change of legislation and how it's going to impact the board. And also, in addition to that, just a great chance to meet him personally and put a face to the name, right? And so it was really a value add meeting. We thank him for coming down to London. He did say that he's making a tour right across the province and having similar meetings with police boards right across the province, which is great because it was most definitely an incredible return on investment of our time there. Dale wrote a very informative piece, kind of a one-on-one with Inspector General Teschner. It's referenced there. It's good reading, and I would encourage everybody to take a look at that whenever they get a chance if they haven't seen it already. So those are the 1, 2. Oh, okay. The other correspondence. The 2 or 3.
That's true. 2.
Okay, so those are the 2 pieces of correspondence that were received. Yep, so motion to receive the public correspondence. Thank you. Moved by Member Goss, seconded by Vice Chair Walker.
This one.
That's the next item.
Oh, the next thing.
I believe that's
We dealt with this actually at the last meeting.
Yeah. That was gonna be my question after we vote on this.
Yeah, so okay, from a logistics standpoint, we've accepted public correspondence. Anyone opposed, seeing none? Okay, we've accepted it. Okay, so.
But
wasn't
this-
at the last-
this-
give me 1 second, Nancy, 1 second. We
Okay.
received, from what I understand, and I wasn't at the last meeting, we received receipt of that correspondence at our last meeting, and it's now placed on the agenda for
Okay, so-
potential.
So I have a motion, Chair.
What's the motion?
Yeah,
go ahead.
if I can go ahead, I want to refer this request to a future board meeting, just to allow us sufficient time to specifically study the feasibility of a few requests listed within the letter. So I would, I don't want to say that it's going to be June for certain, because I think we still have some information to gather. We're also missing a couple members here, so I would like to refer this to a future, or excuse me, defer, I should say, to a future board meeting, and just so we can do the due diligence to properly respond.
Oh, okay.
We had already filed it, like tucked it away, and it was no longer.
I wasn't here. Member Branscombe?
I moved it last time, so I know I did move the receipt of it. We can do what we like with it, but I don't want to refer it to a future meeting. I want to move receipt, but obviously there's a motion on the table, no seconder yet, but I would like to move receipt. And we can pass it on to administration or whoever to look at it to see if it lines up with the reporting structure that we want to propose to the council because we have made a commitment to the public, and there may be some good ideas there, but I'd like to just move receipt of it for now.
Okay, did you put a motion on the floor
I did,
originally?
yeah.
Okay, Member Goss, so.
We're sorry, originally, like just now? Yeah, I literally just, yeah.
Okay,
Just change it to receipt.
so okay, so Member Goss's motion's on the floor to defer. Can we get a seconder just to at least put it on the floor potentially, and then we can decide whether we want to do it or not? So he's
No,
moving
I'm not seconding that one. Sorry.
Okay, well then, looking to the last remaining member here, which is you.
I don't think I'm not supportive of that initiative, just second it, and because I don't think that's the way to go as.
Okay, that's fine. So I don't think I'm able to second it. I know I'm not able to second anything, so there's no second, so withdraw. And then, Member Branscombe will then go to now you have an opportunity to bring a motion, which is.
I just want to move receipt. I appreciate their input. Ultimately, the board and the police service will decide the reporting structure, but we'll take their valuable input because I think they put some thought into it. So I'm happy to look at it, but I that's all.
I'll second.
Okay, so we just gotta be clear on what we're seconding. So motion to receive the correspondence into the police board record, for consideration, by administration. Is that what it is? I don't want to put words in your mouth, so what is it you want me to say?
No, I want to just receive the report, and I
Mhm.
assume that we'll look at it when we're developing the protocols and the reporting structure that we want. Obviously, they've put some thought into it, but it's our reporting structure to
Thank you.
council.
So thank you. Motion on the floor is a motion to receive the correspondence from municipal council. It's moved by member Branscombe, seconded by
Yes.
Vice Chair Walker. Debate discussion, or I'll just call the vote on that. No, no debate discussion.
I guess, will there be a formal response provided back to the city? I guess, yeah, how that motion is written.
To thank them for their input.
I guess there could be at the will of the board here. If the board directs me, I could write a response back to the city to acknowledge receipt and advising that we've taken that into consideration. I don't know.
That would probably be the polite thing to do. I would support that.
Just, I think we should thank them for their input.
Okay, all right, so can you just capture that, possible, okay. Member Goss, I'm not sure if you wanted to provide comment or whether I just call the vote on that, it's up to you. I'll vote, okay, all right, so, I normally ask if anyone's opposed, but I was gonna say, in favor, who's in favor of member Bransco's motion? We got member Bransco, we got Vice Chair Walker, anyone opposed? Okay, that vote is 3-2-1, okay. Thank you. Chair verbal report. I wanted to provide you guys with an update that the board has a working panel known as Mental Health and Addictions Panel. We were in a pilot program. We did it for I think 2 or 3 years now. The panel's work is concluded. We are taking the information and the advice and information from the mental health advisory panel, and that will help inform LPS strategies and LPSD strategies on a go-forward basis. And I just want to thank the panel members for their contributions on behalf of the board and service. And really, that's the extent of it. I've already provided you with an update in terms of CSPA and some of the more procedural changes to things there. So very brief chair's verbal report there. Just unless there's any questions, motion to accept my verbal report. That moved by member Goss, second by Vice Chair Walker. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Ms. Foster, thank you, Ms. Foster. Appreciate that. We can then go to. There is so there's 2 new pieces of business that we added at the top of the meeting. There's the annual London Police Services Board stipend and then the femicide report. Why don't we do it with the stipend, because I imagine that'll be shorter than the femicide report. So just by way of background, there's just standard annual increases to the London Police Service stipend that happen every year. It's 2.3%, 2.36%. Increase from last year, which results, and I'm doing rough math in my head here. It looks like the LPSB member will receive, what is it, like $198? No, $201, I think, more this year than they did last year. So it's standard. It's something that comes from a recommendation from the City of London's clerk's office. It's here for our consideration and receipt and for approval if the board is there. So any questions with regards to the stipend amounts? I can tell you here the stipend amount for LPSB member 2023 was $8,139. This year it's $8,331. For the chair, and everybody, here's your headline. Chair is $9,100, and the stipend for the chair will go to $9,315. So an increase of $215 there. So again, it comes from the city clerk's office and it comes to the board for
I'll move it.
consideration. Yeah, thanks. Nancy, moved by member Branscombe, seconded by
No, I'm second.
Vice Chair Walker. Any discussion, questions with regards to this? No? Let's see, none. Anyone opposed? Thank you. And then there is, there is a letter. So by way of a little bit of background here, bring the letter up here. and Vice Chair Walker can probably provide some institutional background here, but this may come as some news to people here. So when we talk about the stipend that I just referenced there, that's not a stipend for the entire board. That's a stipend for the non-council members of the board. So the mayor and the two city councilors actually don't receive any additional funds for being part of this board. The only ones that are subject or privy to a stipend would be myself, Member Goss, Member Branscombe, and no wait, in my head, you're still filed under council. 1990s reference, there you go. 90s, 2000?
1990.
You don't have to put that in the minutes.
I didn't count.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I just, so there's a suggestion that the board writes a letter to the city clerk's office. And maybe I know Member Goss, we were talking about that. I'm not sure if anyone wants to speak to that specifically, but to ask the working group at the city council, city hall to explore the merits of increasing the stipend to extend to to council members. So is there anyone that wants to speak to that there? No? All right. So I'm looking for a motion from the board directing the chair of the London Police Service Board to write a letter to the city clerk's office asking them to explore a potential stipend for
Oh, sorry, I would just, probably the clerk, I would just say probably the governance working group,
You're right.
considering they're the ones studying this matter currently at City Hall, specifically stipends, council pay, et cetera, and boards and commissions. So I would not direct it necessarily to the clerk, but to the chair or the members of the governance working
Governance
group.
working group. Thank you for that
They also
clarification.
say to reestablish stipends to council members, because that's how it used to be until it was taken away.
And we can incorporate that in the letter and say that there was, this was kind of past practice. So, okay, so thanks for that clarification. It was for the, what was the name? It was the working group?
The governance working group,
Okay.
WG.
Governance, the working group reviewing board and commission stipends. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. Thank you. So motion to direct the chair to write a letter on behalf of the board to that effect. Thank you. Moved by Vice Chair Walker, seconded by Member Goss. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Okay, last agenda item is the femicide report. So I'm going to look over to you, Vice Chair Walker, to walk us through the report and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So this has been placed on hold for a little while, and I'm happy to see that it's come back. There are right now some individuals watching this who have had children killed in acts of homicide, which, as you can imagine, is just absolutely horrific. I'm wearing a pin today to honor Ashley and Stephanie Dobbs, who were murdered by their father. Of course, that too was just to the entire community of London, quite horrific and very sad. And I want to raise some issues around femicide today so that there's a general understanding, a better understanding maybe of what actually is happening in our community and across the country. So in many papers all over the place, but there was so I just wanted to kind of talk, I guess, about the Femicide Observatory for Justice and Accountability, which is located in Guelph. And they record and do a number of presentations, and a lot of effort goes into their work. And that as of May 14th, 2024, 63 women and girls have been victims of femicide in Canada. Very short time period. 6 of the femicides remain unsolved and no accused is identified, which leaves 57 women and girls with an identified accused. Of those 57 women and girls where an accused is identified, 52 are male accused and 5 are female accused. So the overwhelming majority, 91% of women and girls killed, involve male accused. Between 2018 and 2022, there were 850 women and girls in this country who were victims of femicide. And we know that a woman or girl in Canada is a victim of femicide every 48 hours. The most dangerous place for women and girls is in their own homes. And all women are potential victims of femicide for no reason, other reason than their gender. So femicide impacts children who are often left without a family, a parent, or parents in the case of femicide, suicide. And what is important to remember is that femicide is preventable. We know that there are 20 countries in the world that have recognized femicide as a distinct category of killing, with many considering femicide in those countries to be hate crimes. So I am very aware of my limitations because of legislation. So I do, just bear with me for one moment because so one of the requests I receive so often is that police release the names of femicide victims and those accused of killing them. However, and that is something that clearly is important to all of those families. But it does appear that under our current legislation, our hands may be tied with respect to releasing the information. And I'm just going to leave it at that for now, but I do want those family members who are watching and who have been paying close attention because of your circumstances to know that we are potentially going to be looking at other avenues. So I do have a list of recommendations for the board's consideration. First of all, I want to ask that the board recommit to the May 19th recommendations. May 19th, I don't have that date here, which I did have. Do you have it there somewhere?
It's in the first, it's in the motion, so it would be the first, huge on there.
May,
Is it recommendations?
no,
That's not it. No, it would be the first one.
it was,
The motion regarding femicide, right?
sorry,
That was on June 16th, the public meeting.
it actually went to the board though, May 15th.
Yeah,
May
but-
14th, 2024.
Yeah, but yeah,
2024. Yeah.
no, 2022.
Yeah, exactly.
But the actual motion was made on June 16th.
Okay.
2022.
So
I
that,
have it here. Would you like me to?
I beg your pardon?
Do you want to read it? You want to have it here?
okay, thanks. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I'm just gonna highlight. So basically, under the previous board, there was a recommendation which was moved, seconded, and unanimously approved, which was related to femicide and hate crimes against women. And it was outlining that there is common understanding of femicide as the killings of women. Therefore, it is recommended that the board write a letter to the federal government advocating that femicide be defined in the criminal code. Secondly, that the board update a number of its policies. And finally, that the board update, another policy so that we would have better demographic information of known perpetrators of hate, bias, motivated crimes, which we're getting, which we did get today. So I'm asking that the board give consideration to reinvesting in that because I think it's important. And it is board approved from a previous board, however. So that's one motion. Secondly, I would recommend that the board recognize femicide as a policing issue. Femicide is an issue which impacts all of society. And we need to understand that all of society does include police services. And I had the opportunity to meet with Deputy Chief Jeff Hill of Halton. He said intimate partner violence is not a private matter, and we all must do more to bring awareness and action before another woman is killed. And I think that's really important coming from a police perspective. And I'm gonna ask Chief Tom if he could comment on that as well, once I'm finished. Also, that the board and the board chair and the chief sent a letter to the Honorable Minister, to Minister Michael Kersner, outlining the London Police Service Board's initiatives and efforts to name femicide, and to request that we have a meeting with the Honorable Michael Kersner to just further discuss the issues and some of the complexities of the issues and some of the things that are holding us back from taking further action. And finally, I'm asking if the chief will give some consideration to start utilizing the term femicide at LPS under whatever circumstances he deems to be appropriate. So those are the recommendations that I have, and I would turn to the chief if that's all right to respond.
So just before we do that, so from a process standpoint, I think there was two or three or four recommendations there. So before we put those recommendations on the floor, I guess I'll look to comments from any members from the chief with regards to Vice Chair Walker's comments there. So
Thank you, Chair, and through you. First of all, Vice Chair Walker, I'll say to thank you for your dedication and your commitment to this cause and your advocacy through the years. I think this community knows, not only the London community, but nationally, you're well known for your advocacy and support of victims and families of crime. Femicide is, the most, I would say, the gruesome form of gender-based violence out there. It is a problem not only in this community, but globally. So I can tell you without any reservation that it is a concern for all police, especially this police service here and this administration. So I'm just trying to parse out everything you said here when you referred to me. So one, yes, we support that there needs to be more done. From a policing side, education and awareness prevention is part of what we should be doing and what we often do in this space. And that as a police service, we listen to concerns, we listen to the community, and it is a priority of the city with respect to intimate partner violence or gender-based violence. So for us, if you're asking for us to use the term femicide, I would say I understand the importance of calling it femicide. I understand the purpose and the awareness piece and shedding light to this issue. I will commit to looking at our practices and looking at how we can use the term in the right context and what context we can use the term femicide. And I am supporting what you were saying. But let me take this back and look at how we can put together an appropriate strategy to address this issue of femicide and gender-based violence that's affecting young women and girls. Subject to any questions, Chair.
I'm going to look to Vice Chair Walker if there's any follow-up before I look to anyone else. So
No, I really appreciate that commitment. That's, I think that will be reassuring to many of the families that I have worked with and continue to work with. And I think it will definitely benefit our community in London and beyond, because I think other communities will pick up on this as we move forward. So thank you.
thank you, Vice Chair Walker. I believe there was one other recommendation that dealt with Member Branscombe, yeah.
I was gonna second the recommendation, so.
Yeah, okay, so I don't think the first thing about chief's commitment to look at it and come, I don't think that requires a motion. I think that's, he's committed to do that. But I do know that the second recommendation that you had, or the third one, was about writing the letter to the
Yes.
Minister Kersner. That would require a motion on behalf of the board, right? So you talk.
Motion as well on the first one.
If you want, yeah.
Is that it's officially.
Absolutely.
So the first one I agree with, which is from Chief Crum. Second one is around sending a letter to Minister Kersner. And my understanding from my colleague, Member Goss, is that it needs to go through the provincial government before we can take it federally. And so I would ask that we send a letter to Mr. Kersner and maybe ask for a meeting. I mean, I know that the chief has a great relationship with him and could sort of relay the information without a formal meeting, but relay our concerns about what's going on currently with both the legislation and the lack of response by the federal government because they're waiting for something to come provincially. And I think that would be the step.
Thank you. So, if I can maybe put language to that, motion.
That's so great. to
Thank
do
you.
that.
All right, so a motion.
I don't talk very well.
No, it's okay. Who wants to be involved with some of this world of water scheme? Nobody does. Yeah, so a motion to direct the chair of the board to write to Minister Kersner, Solicitor General Kersner, to request a meeting with the minister to discuss issues of femicide.
And the other member. About release.
And moving, right, and right, so we can say like femicide related
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
Okay, femicide related issues. And then I guess the only thing I would like to add to that, with your permission, Vice Chair Walker, is that normally the chair has those meetings, but I would very much appreciate if you would, if we are able to schedule a meeting, it would be a meeting with the chair and the vice chair and potentially the chief as well. So, okay, so how much of that did you get?
Well, only very little.
Yeah,
But
so-
is it in the? No, this is.
No, this is, so a motion to direct the chair to.
Directs the chair to write a letter to Minister Kersner to discuss issues of femicide,
Request a meeting.
request a meeting.
Friendly amendment, Solicitor General.
Yeah.
Kersner. No, it's just administered. It's just semantics, but like he's the Solicitor General.
To write a letter to Solicitor General Kersner to request a meeting. I'm just debating whether we're going to call it. Yeah, to discuss issues of femicide and femicide related issues.
The matter releasing.
No, femicide related issues. Discuss issues of femicide and femicide related issues. If you're comfortable with that, Vice Chair Walker.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I actually don't think, no, on second thought, I don't think we need to specify chair, vice chair. Just if he accepts the meeting, we can just meet with
Yeah.
whoever, right? So that's fine. So, okay. Yep. The board directs motion to direct the chair to write a letter to Solicitor General Kersner to request the meeting to discuss femicide related issues. Okay, that's fine. All right, so that's.
The chief's one to what he said. Yeah, so we've got that recorded. So there should be 3 altogether. The final one is about requesting the board
To reaffirm the motion.
reaffirm the
The
motion,
principles
the
of the motion.
principle.
Okay. So motion to have the board reaffirm the principles of the motion from the May
14th,
22
2022.
motion. Okay. Are you guys okay if we just deal with it as a package deal instead of voting on each motion?
Yes,
Okay.
just a friendly letter. Well, I would ask that you also CC the letter to MPP and Minister Rob Flack, who is the full member of the government and the local member of provincial parliament that is in the foreign government. So I think it'd be prudent
That would
also
be great.
that since it is a London, it does represent part of London, that he should be CC'd on that letter as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's.
We can make the motion. Did we get a seconder yet?
Yeah. Nancy, Member Branscombe seconded that motion.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I know Megan's been waiting patiently to get this back on the table, and I just want to applaud all her efforts. I do not have the depth of knowledge about these issues that she has, but I do have 2 daughters. And I think that anything we can do to advance this cause is going to help all of us and our community. So Megan, thank you for your life's work and continuing it now with the Police Services Board.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay,
And I really appreciate everybody's help in getting us to this place. So thank you.
so I'm gonna just package deal these motions. So there's three of them there that are before you, which are the write the letter to the Solicitor General Kersner, reaffirm the principles of the May 2022 motion, and what was the third one? Just to remind me again.
To get consideration to using the term.
Yeah, right.
At
Perfect.
times he needs appropriate.
Perfect. All right. So moved by Vice Chair Walker, seconded by Member Branscombe. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, those three parts of that motion are carried unanimously.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Walker. Okay. That's it. All right. So we're gonna motion to adjourn at 5:01.
But we want to vote no for next meeting, Chair.
Yeah, June, next meeting is June 20th, 2024. Be here, so.
I'll move the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. So moved by Member Chalice. I actually don't think we need a second or to adjourn, but whatever. Vice Chair Walker will second that. And then anyone opposed? Seeing none, mine is carried. Thank you. We'll see you on June 20th.
Just before
Thanks,
you go-
everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy.
My phone is missing, but it keeps ringing from over this way. And I'm wondering, would there be a chance it's ended up in your briefcase? I don't see her, but it seems.
Some of it was coming from